This is the Xpress Execute XQ2S. It's my very first touring car. It was a kit and it's awesome. Let me tell you all about it. So I'm a total beginner to flat track racing. That's racing touring cars on an asphalt surface, usually a nice hot mix, nice sealed surface, racetrack kind of thing. We have a local club I discovered and I've shared with you in previous videos. And this year I thought I'd like to actually have a go at driving a proper touring car. I took the advice from the club guys and went and got myself an Xpress, which is Xpress RC, went and got myself an Xpress Execute XQ2S. Now touring cars are often an expensive carbon fiber affair, but the XQ2S is a kit that is budget minded for the beginner, which is perfect for me and maybe for you too. I bought from an Australian mob called Smokem who support Sydney and Melbourne clubs, and they sent me everything I needed. Now other kit suppliers, everything you need for the car itself. You don't get electronics, pinion, body, wheels, that kind of thing. So the back of the manual here shows you the stuff you need. The most obvious thing you might forget if you're doing this yourself is the pinion, but I bought from Smokem, which is a local shop. They have an all-in-one starter package. So I got a nice 2S battery. I've got a bunch already, but it was good to have. And I got all the electrics I needed, which was great because then I could just sit down and build this thing. Now the manual for this thing is pretty good. It outlines everything you need, and one thing I like, which is what most manuals do, but not all of them, is it'll give you a one-to-one of the parts you need for this page, so you can line up, and if you have any, like if you're not sure about which bearing, for example, you just put it over the picture itself and you can see. So that's pretty nice, and the build went together quite easily. It was fun. I did it at a slow pace, actually. Just I wanted to enjoy it a little bit. I didn't video it, but I did take some photos, which is what you've been seeing, and I enjoyed it. Now let me tell you about this car, because if you are like me, used to the RTR stuff, you may not be aware of some differences that make a touring car what it is. Let me show you underneath the body, because it's quite cool. Many different bodies fit. This happens to be a Blitz body, part of what Smokem supplied. But here's what you actually get without the electronics and wheels when you buy the XQ2S. Now this is designed for beginners, so they've taken some liberties here with their design. It's a composite chassis with a composite stiffener. There's no carbon fiber to be seen here, but all the parts are a high quality, lightweight, but very, very rigid material. Like there's almost no flex. I'm just going to take you through all the features of this thing really quickly. It's going to give you an idea of what you can expect from a basic beginner's touring car, because I was really impressed. First thing, such a little thing, but it's really fun. They've got these little battery tabs that are spring loaded, and you pick them up and then it turns and it snaps in. And that, combined with the limit pieces for your battery, and they do have longer and shorter ones, and you can change the height of this too. That holds your battery in. I ran 2 packs through, hard packs through yesterday on the track, and it didn't move. I love this design, it's really clever. As you may have spotted already, this is a belt drive. So we have the motor here with the pinion and your spur gear here, and you've got one belt that goes to the back into a diff, and a longer belt that goes to the front. Now the front is actually a locked spool. This is a more budget choice car, so they've made the decision to give you a diff for the rear and a locked spool for the front. And for beginners, keep in mind my opinions here are those of a beginner. I've got a good general knowledge, but I don't have this kind of racing knowledge, just what I've worked out and what I know generally for motorsports and stuff. A locked front in an RC is going to understeer pretty badly on corners, particularly when you're really turned sharp. And you'll see how when we're when we're fully turning here, look how much extra steer you get in that last bit of servo through, so that the inside wheel goes a lot further. It's a pretty good design. It's going to understeer pretty heavily, and I found that to be the case, But the reason that they give you a locked diff, or you might put a high weight oil in your front diff if you have one, is that it gives you better stability off the line. It'll pull straight, and coming out of corners while you're still cornering, the car will still pull. It'll understeer, but as you're under acceleration and not braking, it'll generally pull the direction you're going. Now I'm going to order a diff. They're 30 odd US dollars, but I'm going to stick one in the front. I've got 5,000 weight oil in the rear, and I'm thinking I'm going to stick something like 50 to 80,000 in the front, which will give it a degree of lockedness, but it'll still have some give, which should hopefully help, because when I was driving this yesterday, it ground away on the tires a little bit. You could just, it was really working hard. It tracked pretty well, and I've got nothing to compare this to except for the RTR type cars I've got, but it still felt like a beautiful, precise machine. It just needs, I'd like to have an open diff, just a stiff but open diff. So that's the belt system. The servo setup, the steering setup rather, is rather clever. The angles that they've used mean you get a lot of extra throw on your inside wheel when you're cornering, which does help counter having a spool in the front. It doesn't weigh a heck of a lot either, which is nice. Now it came with a big spur gear. I've dropped down to a smaller one. We've got a 91 tooth spur gear here, and it came with a 120 I think, and my pinion is a 46. So we've got a 3.5 to 1 drive ratio there, this is a 17.5 turn just stock system I'm using. So I'm entering in the noob class for touring cars, but that's quite okay. You get some adjustment with your suspension, not a lot. There's only there are 3 positions for the top part of your shocks, and two on the bottom. I've gone with stock positions for everything. There are no sway bars, but the mount points are there for it, and that's the other thing I'm going to buy. They're about 15 bucks, and I'll get the set. Sway bars and a front diff that's been firmed up with stiff oil, I think, will be the only 2 things I really want to add or change on this car. And otherwise I'm just going to drive it and go through tires, because I'd really like to get to know this thing and get to drive better and better. What else to tell you is that there's a fast servo that's been supplied from Smokem, and a fast servo is always a great choice for a touring car. I'm using a Futaba radio that lets me turn the speed down, not the expo, not the endpoints, but the actual speed, the responsiveness. So it could simulate a slower servo, which I found I needed because I don't have the coordination as a new driver that more seasoned drivers will probably appreciate, that tight, locked-in, instant response. I found it too fast, so I dropped it down to 80% speed, and that suited my driving better. And as you can see from the footage I've been playing while I've been talking here, I was able to keep the thing on the straight and narrow most of the time. It really is an experience to drive this thing. It's quite different to the Phaser Mark II or any of the Tamiya stuff. There's just a locked-in feel about it. Now its bigger brother, well, the predecessor is the XQ2S, but the bigger brother to this I think would be the XQ10, and that might be something to look at later. It's double the price. It's a carbon fiber and more alloy pieces. There's a lot of just fiber reinforced plastics through this, and that might be something to look at when I'm going for a faster setup. But for this year, while I'm just getting used to driving, I think I'm just going to go through a bunch of tires and learn to drive. My friend Simon and I have been to the track a few times, and we've talked to some of the guys there when they've been practicing, had a chat. A lot of them recommended this. There are other good platforms out there too. If you have a local track or club, talk to them. There'll be cars that they prefer running, and that when you're all running the same car, that's a real plus. But don't be scared off if everyone's running really big dollar items. This whole project for me cost about 700 Australian dollars, I think, 750, which is like 400 and something American dollars, give or take. And it's not bad. Little things that show that it's a cheapie. You've got like a plastic body shocks, but it's aluminium top and bottom and good O-ring seals in it. They're just a short throw, but absolutely fine. So for a touring car, it's a great starting point. I love that you can adjust the stiffness of the chassis as well. Xpress has a little screw here that goes straight through an alloy post, and you can put 3 different size plastics in there, which will allow this top composite piece to move more or less. I've gone with the most firm settings all the way through. There's a line through here which lets you also adjust the stiffness of the chassis. There's an alloy piece above it. You can fill it with screws like it says in the manual, or you can use less screws and it'll flex more. So there's a lot of thoughtful design in this. There is minimal adjustment with the turnbuckles and whatnot, but I just built everything to stock. I just used the 4-hole instead of 3-hole pistons. As far as a beginner's car goes for track racing, really like it. If you're just looking to drive on your local street or your driveway, the Kyosho Phaser Mark II has been a really fun car, and I've got a video series there for that. But if you're looking more seriously at a track, or you do actually have a lovely flat road and you'd like to maybe throw some cones out if it's a quiet street, something like this is a pretty nice step up. Still got plenty of adjustability, but basic enough that you can get your head around it as a beginner. I really like it. Thanks for watching, guys. Throw me a like, and we'll look forward to doing more track content later in the year. At the moment we're into crawling and comps, but I'm going to be changing as we go through the year with various different things. So I'll catch you then on RC-TNT, and I thank you so much for watching.